Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Arvada City Council meeting for today, July 28, 2026. This is a special, we have a need for a special business meeting prior to conducting this evening's workshop. Ms. Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Mayor Simpson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Here.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Griffith.
Here.
Councilmember Levison.
Here.
Thank you. We have one item on the special meeting agenda, and that is the council discussion and motion on next steps in the pending ethics investigation. Is Mr. Corey Hoffman with us? Mr. Hoffman, I believe you can introduce this item, and then we will have a recusal.
Good evening, members of council. Tonight, you had an executive session to receive legal advice on the next steps related to investigations that have been conducted pursuant to the Arvada Code of Ethics under Section 2-375 of the code. If you deem it appropriate, based on the results of the investigation, the council can either determine to move forward with a hearing if it is more likely than not that a violation has occurred, or determine to dismiss a violation if you determine that it is more likely than not that a violation has not occurred. You have two ethics investigations that you have received, one dated April 13th, 2026, the other dated July 13th, 2026. And so you are, it is appropriate if you determine to do so, to make motions to determine how best to proceed under those two, for each of those two investigations.
Thank you. Quickly, we do need a recusal.
I can make the motion?
We need a motion to recuse Councilmember Davis.
Yes, I can make that motion.
Thank you.
I move to recuse Councilmember Davis from this next business item.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Davis, would you like to speak to the recusal?
I would, thank you. I would like to be on the record that I have not received information on next steps moving forward, and tonight's meeting was somewhat of a blindside, if not really kind of a surprise, and I am eager to know what the next steps are for this as I read through Section 2-375. It's, I'm just very interested. This has been a 6-month long road that we have been going down, that I've particularly been going down, and it's been difficult for me to serve you, the public, and staff in an efficient and trustful way. So I will be recusing myself from this special meeting, but I do think that it's important to understand that I am dismayed by the process, and that what could have been addressed in a simple conversation between me and council has turned into a highly resourced 6-month process. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So you will be recusing, just for matter of the record, because you have a personal stake in the issue and you cannot vote. So with that, the vote is cast 6-0. You are a recused member for this matter. You may choose to leave the dais. Thank you. So with that, please don't go far. This won't last long. Is there any council questions or action on this issue? Councilmember Pfeiffer, do you wish to?
Can we just clarify I think it'd be important to clarify that the process hasn't really made as far as it's been insinuated by Councilmember Davis. This is the very, very, very beginning of a process. Could you clarify that so that?
Yes, Councilmember Pfeiffer. The process under the Code of Ethics is to have an initial investigation by a disinterested third party to determine whether it is more likely than not that a violation may have occurred or may not have occurred. That is the stage of the process that council is in. If council were to find that a violation is more likely than not to have occurred, it has the opportunity to set the matter for a hearing. If council determines it is more likely than not that a violation did not occur, then this is the opportunity for council to dismiss such a violation. And so I believe where we are in the process tonight is council is giving me as your special counsel direction on how to proceed next in terms of what the next steps are. And if council were to determine as to either of the investigations to move forward, that would start the hearing process. So that would be the first step after receiving the initial investigation from the disinterested third party.
Councilmember Griffith, you wish to ask any questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I have two questions. One, are the two investigations for the two ethics violations in question complete?
They are.
And has the information been provided in any way to the public or disclosed beyond?
It is not. It is confidential attorney-client privilege communication at this point.
And has any of that information been shared with Ms. Davis or her counsel?
To my knowledge, it has not. She has been notified of the existence of the investigations and participated in the investigations. But this is all in the Arvada Code of Ethics, and it is language in the code that the city is following.
I think it's reasonable for the folks at home to say that the first ethics violation has been put out into the world, is exactly what is being said about that ethics violation. I don't know if the same is true about the second. Is the nature of the second ethics and violation public information?
I'm not sure how to answer that. The council directed that the second matter be investigated, I believe, in April of 2026. So,
If I may, there was detail in the motion that was made. It does not reference specifics, but it does reference the general nature of the violation that occurred for the second investigation, if my memory serves correctly, Ms. Morris.
No further questions.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's generally correct. We did not give any factual information to the public related to the second ethics investigation.
For reasons it may remain neutral and unbiased. So with that, Councilmember Ambrose?
Yes, I would like to make a motion.
All right, we have a motion.
I move that special council draft a resolution for city council consideration at the August 18th, 2026 city council meeting finding that because of a technical deficiency in the Arvada Code of Ethics, that the city council shall dismiss the allegation that is the subject of the ethics investigation dated April 13th, 2026, because it is more likely than not, based on such technical deficiency, that Councilmember Davis did not violate Section 2-375 of the Code of Ethics pursuant to Section 2-378F of the Arvada Code.
Council will cast its votes on this particular motion. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0. Councilmember Ambrose, you have the second motion.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I move that special council draft a resolution for city council consideration at the August 18th, 2026 city council meeting finding that it is more likely than not that a violation of Section 2-375 of the Code of Ethics has occurred as a result of the ethics investigation dated July 13th, 2026, and directing that the matter be set for a hearing pursuant to Section 2-378E2 of the Arvada Code.
All votes will be cast. That passes 6-0. Thank you very much. So with that, we have no additional items on this evening's agenda. Councilmember Ambrose, you wish to speak?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to have a personal point of privilege to have a break before we resume into the workshop.
I think that is a great idea. Let's go ahead and do that. I will go ahead and leave Councilmember Davis recused for the closure of this meeting. Ms. Morris, are we allowed to do that? Or Ms. Davis, would you like to resume for just the gavel out and take a quick break? Okay, so we will go ahead and gavel. I will close the special business meeting, take a quick break, and then we will resume.
Welcome to the Arvada City Council meeting for today, July 28th, 2026. Tonight is a workshop. Ms. Rush, if you will do the roll call.
Mayor Evans and Mayor Simpson.
Here.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Here.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Griffith.
Here.
Councilmember Levison.
Here.
So many of you may be wondering why I have a co-mayor right now. So everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Jonas Evans. He's an incoming 7th grader at Foster K-8. And Jonas is the winner of the Charity Mayor for a Day. This is the first time we've gotten to do it. He spent the entire day with me. We went and we met with Urban Renewal, and we saw an urban renewal project. He got to tour the water treatment facility. He got to tour the police department. They even put him in handcuffs. It was his request. It was his request. And we did lots of things today, including getting to explore the council buttons and see how we do everything up here. So Jonas, do you want to tell us anything about your day?
It was just really fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being my buddy today. I appreciate you. All right, high five. All right, now you get to learn all about wastewater. So go on down with your dad, and you're going to get to listen to the water rates discussion. It's a thrilling discussion for an incoming 7th grader, but very relevant since we did tour the water treatment facility today. All right, we have 2 workshops on this evening's agenda. The first is the 2027 Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater Rates and Fees discussion. Ms. Rhodes, I believe you have this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Council, and I'm going to begin this evening with just a thank you for your time as we continue our annual discussion on water rates and fees. Could I have the slides up first, please? Thanks. So we're going to kick off this evening with a bit of a response to some of the things we heard in our last May foundational workshop. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the key infrastructure investments that we've made and our upcoming priority projects. We're going to talk about getting your direction on the strategies that we're using in our rate and fee setting discussions. We'll give an update on our water use management tools and assistance programs, and we'll follow up with direction on next steps for our next series of workshops. I'm just going to pause for a moment so we can have some slides. For anyone watching at home, this is in your packet. It is some details on our capital improvements program and our priority projects that we've laid out. This is an attachment in your packet. We've provided the council with a printout so that we can dive into any questions you might have on specific project priorities.
With apologies, folks, this has never happened before, but we can't seem to find the slide deck. It's coming, I promise. It's in the public agenda. Hooray.
Just in case you're wondering, it is a full moon tomorrow.
Is Mercury also in retrograde? I don't know. I don't follow this, but I've heard that's a thing. Okay. We can we can also download those slides and then use them. So. Just download and then open. I think I saw present there. Go back to the 3 dots. 3 dots. Huzzah! All right, now we have the 2027. There we go. Water, wastewater, and stormwater rates and fees. Ms. Rhodes, thank you.
Thank you, team. And I'm joined, there were so many behind the work that we've done tonight. Some are here with us tonight, others are not, but many of us have contributed to this presentation. I'm going to start with just a reminder of why we're here, and it's that reliable infrastructure and our utility services are really the foundation of our vibrant community. The system investments that you're making decisions on tonight help us provide predictable service, high-quality drinking water to your tap, 24/7, 365. Keep sewage in pipes where it's supposed to be before it goes on to Metro Water Recovery for treatment, and funds our stormwater systems so that we have flood control protections and we're providing water quality services that help minimize pollution to our waterways. This helps the decisions we're making around these rates and fees help us respond to system events and maintain those reliable operations. We talked a lot about how to make some of these decisions relatable to the other essential services in our lives, and I just wanted to emphasize for a penny a gallon, you have that safe, high-quality drinking water delivered to your tap. When you compare it here to other essentials like a gallon of gas, you can think of a tank of gas being almost comparable to running a load of laundry. I struggle with some of this because often we talk about performing maintenance on your home or on your vehicles, and I have some examples that I can refer to here and stories that we've told, but unlike those, we don't have the choice to move into a new model. We don't have the choice to sell our home and move somewhere else. We can't trade in our vehicle for a bicycle. We have a responsibility to maintain these systems. I think I also wanted to make this relative to my own family, a family of 5, where it costs me about $1.50 a day for my indoor water use. For each day that I choose to irrigate, that's over $5 a day for me to maintain my trees and my landscaping. So we're trying to think holistically about the impacts to all of our customers and wanting to try and put this in context of some of the other decisions we have that we make when it comes to our household bills. The work we're doing tonight is in alignment with City Council's strategic plan, and in addition to the core services that are outlined in the plan, we've heard from you that there are some priority goals that we're working on, and that's to identify and prioritize projects for modernizing our infrastructure and making sure that we're working to close any infrastructure deficit and funding gaps. So a lot of the decisions that you're providing direction for us tonight will help us advance those goals. We are in the middle of a continuous process when it comes to budgeting decisions at the city. Earlier in the year, our infrastructure teams meet. We review the needs across our operations, and we update what we're calling our CIP one-pagers, which again are in the packet and in front of you today. We'll talk about some of those. We've gone through our department budget hearings where we've presented to our finance and budget team, and we've modeled all of those costs in our financial models across the enterprise funds. So we're deep into that process. We've done our deep dives, and where we are tonight is we're sharing that modeling result with you so we can bring back the scenarios you need to make those decisions. So that's where we are, step 4 in the process. What we heard from you last time, and we hope to speak to tonight in a few different ways, is to share what we're calling the green projects on the one-pager. Let's talk about the work that we've gotten done, that we funded, and let's talk about what's worked. We also wanted to make sure the one-pager is understandable, and when we talk about how we prioritize projects and make some of those decisions and how we're sequencing our work, we're very clear in how we're making that. We have a few examples in the core of the presentation tonight that speak to these items 1 and 2. We have more in the appendix and in the handouts that we're happy to answer your questions on. We've also heard, consideration for household size and examples about how other communities address their tiered rates and their different customer types. So we've provided some of that information in the appendix, although I'll share that tonight we're not recommending a change to our tiered structure. We're providing some of that information, and we'll continue those conversations with you and through our community stewardship group that we'll provide an update on tonight. So any questions, again, we'll dive into that in the appendix. For updates to customer impacts and every touch point we have with our customers, we are excited about some of the advancements we've been making in terms of the ability to view your bill online. We've launched auto pay, but we know we have more work to do. So through this customer service lens, we've been working to sequence not only our drought response, which has been very intensive this season, but the implementation of our extended producer responsibility, our recycling credits. We know we have an upcoming solid waste single hauler RFP to launch. We know we have composting services to consider and a billing system replacement. And while I know the solid waste items aren't on the agenda for our discussion tonight, I thought it was important to consider when we talk about the overall impact to our customers as they receive and interpret their bill. We continue to advance, we continue to do a shut-off process, and we have some updates for that in the appendix. And we know we have more work to do there as we go into the lean process in the fall. We are continuing work on drought response, data monitoring, and we have many references tonight to an upcoming surcharge hearing. And I'll speak to this again at the end of the presentation, but staff does have some updates to provide and an updated recommendation for the council to consider around drought surcharges. So I'd like to begin tonight by starting with some of our system results and the projects that we've been able to deliver, and I'd like to invite Mary Stahl up here to talk through some of that.
Good evening, Council, and I'm super excited to get to share this one because we have done a lot of work really since I started in 2021, but what this slide reflects is 2023 through 2026. So two-year budget cycles, 4 one-pagers. And as I was practicing these slides, I realized that while this graph was a lovely way to do it in a slide and not give you insane amounts of detail, sometimes...
So she's going to give us the insane amounts of detail. Thank you.
So the list I just sent, or just gave you, was the projects that are in that red half of the graph. the 44 projects that have either been completed or will be completed this quarter. So listing the projects by their names from the one-pagers, there's been 95 projects in the 3 utility funds. 44 of those are done or will be done this quarter. 14 are currently in construction. It should be done within the next 6 months. And then the 2 blues on there are design and planning. A reminder that our CIP projects take a really long time. Best case for very simple, very small projects is 18 to 24 months from yes, you can go do it to actually getting it done. More realistically, most of our projects take between 2 and 4 years. And by that, I don't mean that pre-planning before we come and ask for permission. That's from we're actually moving forward. So these are things that just take a really long time because they're big and they're complicated. So again, this has been really exciting and fun, and we thank you for your support. And this has allowed us to accomplish a lot of work that's really been needed. So a lot of significant work. So I also get to speak to bullet 2 with what Jacqueline said we wanted to talk about tonight, and that is how do we decide and prioritize our projects? And very specifically, we're going to talk about the red, orange, yellow system that we instituted a few years ago on the one-pager, and we're going to apply it to our annual waterline projects. So red. Red means that it could impact a lot of people, a large part of the city. It means we think there could be imminent failure and or we have an immediate health threat if we don't do this project. Applying that to water lines, specifically the waterline project in 2027 that is red, those 2 neighborhoods have had 85 breaks, a lot of breaks. And that impacts our ability to send and loop water to adjacent areas when we have that kind of breaks. So we're impacting a lot of people within the city. A third piece of that 2027 project is a critical health care facility that includes a dialysis center and is currently on a single feed. We think that that should have better service because that is an imminent health threat if that pipeline gets broken. So that's why that particular line item is red. So if we move on to orange, a little bit lower in the threat level, with regards to water line, that means we could impact many people. There could be a health threat, but it's likely at a slightly lower risk of happening imminently, or it's a lower number of people. And specific to the annual waterline program, this is the 28 waterline. One of the projects is the 28 waterline, which currently has about 50 breaks over 2 neighborhoods. So in other words, you can see that we took the worst of the worst, and then we're looking at the next level. And then lastly, those yellow projects typically impact a smaller portion of the city, or we can mitigate the impact, or we don't think there's a significant health threat. And applying that to waterline, where we have applied it, is that from all of our database work and asset management work, we know we have a lot of pipeline that is at end of life. It's not talking to us yet, and by that I mean it doesn't have those really large numbers of breaks within neighborhoods. So we're targeting it to do it proactively. That said, if we choose not to do that proactively, it will start bubbling up into orange and red as it gets older, just like if you ignore things on your car or your house, they start bubbling up to where you have to do them. And then, why do we target this stuff? Why don't we just fix it? Is it that big a deal to go fix things, whether it's water, wastewater, or stormwater? And the answer is because it's a whole lot more expensive to do it as emergency repair rather than proactively. And let me start with, these are estimates. And each event is unique, so I can't say any one event is going to be like on the stormwater at 50,000 or on the water. We have a lot that are in that 10,000 range. We also have had a couple that have been really expensive. In addition, each emergency event can impact city property, it can impact private property, and it definitely has a health and public safety impact. So if you look at the table, you can see on the water line, 10 to 50,000 to fix and damage any repair.
The city property damage typically is a road, sometimes curb and gutter, sometimes other things. Private property damage can be landscaping, that's fairly frequent. Water is a very good destructive element. And sometimes it can be that water went where we didn't think it would go and went into a home and caused water damage inside a home. However, if we do that proactively, and we assume that we have to fix about 10 feet of pipe in a line break, which typically is anywhere from 3 feet to about 10 feet, replacing 10 feet of pipe as part of a project is about $3,000, so a lot less expensive on a unit basis. Sanitary sewer is similar. Our sanitary sewer team tells me it's about 50 grand a basement. Rachel's risk team, I think, would probably agree with that. And worse is, it's just awful, right, that we would put sewage in somebody's basement. And again, if we can go in and proactively line a segment of pipe, which is anywhere from a few tens of feet to about 150 feet, that was about $6,000 versus $50,000 a basement, plus actually fixing whatever caused the backup. And storm sewer is very similar as to the wastewater side, except typically we're looking at sinkholes. Sinkholes are very expensive, and that's if we cross our fingers and no one gets hurt with that sinkhole. And again, being proactive is a whole lot less expensive on a per unit basis. And then, so continuing on that failure costs more than replacement. I mean, I've talked about public property damage, private property damage, public health and safety. Sometimes it goes a whole lot farther than you think it will. We have a number of examples up here. A couple are national. A number of them are Colorado-based. The one in the upper top middle, that just happened last week or 2 weeks ago. It is Denver Water. They had a pipe break in Colorado Boulevard. It was closed overnight, and I believe it was closed 24 hours or so. You can see how much water is there. My gut would say they probably had private property damage in addition to closing a major arterial road for hours and hours and hours. So our goal, obviously, is to not be on the news in this fashion. It costs more money. It's a risk to public health and safety. With that, Chris gets to talk to the next items.
Welcome, Ms. Gray.
Thank you and good evening. So I'm going to transition our conversation from what we've been working on, some explanations about what you have in front of you, which is the large color-coded one-pager that we've kept to one page on this version, and we've rolled things up into some summary categories to make it a little bit easier to understand, and I'll speak to that a little bit more at the bottom of this slide. But I want to start this conversation by talking about a strategy that we'd like to implement, and we'll ask for your direction towards the end of the presentation. So as a reminder, in our water and sewer funds, we offer and charge a fixed service fee along with a volumetric or consumption charge, and that provides us with our total customer revenues. You'll see those on your bills as a service charge for the fixed fee and then the consumption charge for how much water or wastewater you use. Our current ratio range of revenues from those fixed fees represent 12% currently for the wastewater fund and 16% for the water fund. That's of our overall revenues. We are looking to implement a strategy that moves that goal to 20% minimum for each fund. And why would we do that? So there are a number of benefits to not only our ratepayers, but to our city costs. Those higher fixed revenues save ratepayers over time through a higher credit rating. When we have more cash on hand, when we have more stable revenues, those who are looking to buy our bonds and our bond council and the rating agencies look at that more favorably. That offers us lower borrowing costs. It offers us lower interest paid on those investments. And then overall, the lifetime cost for our ratepayers is much lower. That also allows us to have a more stable revenue overall. So if you recall back in June when we talked to you about drought, we showed you a pie chart of how much water our residents tend to use indoors versus outdoors. And the typical residential customer uses more of their water outdoors than they do indoors. And in most normal years, that's fine. And then you get years like this, which is a historic drought, and we are asking our customers to reduce their water use, which reduces our revenues. Or years like 2023, and even last year, we had rainy weather, spring, summer, fall. customers aren't watering their lawns because they don't have to, and therefore we're not seeing those revenues come in. So we're looking to find that balance between what's appropriate for our customers and for the utility, knowing that the vast majority of our costs are fixed. They are between 85 and 95% fixed costs. And we also recognize that it is not realistic to charge most of our fees as fixed. We can't make our fixed fees 95% of the bill. So we're trying to find that balance, and that 20% minimum is where we are looking at strategizing going forward. The rate scenarios that we'll discuss going forward on the next several slides do fund all of our operations and our capital projects. They all include this fixed revenue policy goal. We do have a large stormwater fund adjustment, and that was based on some conversations we had with you last year. And they do fund all of our essential water, wastewater, and stormwater projects. So this is a roll-up slide showing all of the impacts to all of the funds. We're showing it based on both a monthly impact and a bi-monthly impact, recognizing that we, the city, bi-monthly bill customers, but a lot of our comparisons are shown on a monthly basis, so we wanted to offer you both of those comparisons. We are showing you that this overall picture, this rate strategy going forward, is based on a 90,000 gallon per year use by a residential customer. We have brought that down a little bit because 2025 water use was a little bit lower, and we are working on a 5-year average to represent what customers typically use while being realistic. So you'll see that the monthly increase to our customers for water would be $5.90. For wastewater would be $3.33. For stormwater would be $2.50, for a total monthly increase of $11.73. And because we bill bi-monthly, that next set of numbers below is double what the monthly is. This overall picture, this overall rate structure or rate recommendation does fund all of the red, orange, and yellow projects that are on the handout that you received and that were in the published packet. It does represent a minimum of a fixed fee revenue of 20% or higher. And again, we do have that larger stormwater fund adjustment. And so again, before I move on to each of the individual funds, what I want to express is that during this work that we bring to you, we are looking to find that balance between responsibly funding our utilities. As Mary mentioned a few times, we are proactively looking at the projects that need to be done in order to keep our systems reliable. And as Jacqueline mentioned, we do not have the ability to sell this system and go find another system. I can't sell my house. I mean, I can sell my house if I don't treat it well and move on to another house, but we cannot sell our utilities. They are the ones that we have, and so we are looking to make sure that they are appropriately invested in. So I'll go on to the next slide, which reflects our water rate plan. So the specifics of this, look like a $4 fixed bi-monthly fee increase, an 8% volumetric increase, for a total increase of 9.2%. And again, that turns out to be a $5.90 per month increase, or $11.80 per bi-monthly bill. I won't read all the projects off to the right, but what that gets for our customers is reliable water supply, a reliable system. We are meeting our regulatory standards, and we are planning proactively for what's coming down the road. The next slide speaks to our wastewater rate plan, and this specifically looks like a $3 fixed bi-monthly fee increase, a 6.25% volumetric increase for a total increase of 8.9%. Again, that rolls up into a monthly increase of $3.33 per month, or $6.66 per bi-monthly bill. This does look like a number of different things. Again, we are proactively planning. We are continuing the journey of planned improvements for development while also repairing and replacing a lot of the sewer lines in the city. And then some pre-1970 trenchless sewer work. So we've got some really old wastewater lines out there. And then finally, for the Stormwater Fund, we talked to you last year about the fact that we were going to be doing some review over this past year about what the Stormwater Fund needs, what it could look like to fund those, and so you asked us to come back with that plan. This is what we are recommending moving forward, is a large volumetric increase, a 35% increase, which sets us on the right course for this fund. and it looks like an average monthly cost of $2.50, or $5 per bi-monthly bill. This allows us to leverage the funds that all of us as residents in the Mile High Flood District pay into. We get that money back, and we leverage those funds that they've collected on our behalf with city projects. And so we have a handful of projects moving forward that we want to take advantage of that money. We have a number of local drainage problems, 6 of them in particular, replacing some pipeline, some outfall work, and then once we've completed our condition assessments, some repair and replacement work that we're going to pursue. So what does this look like when we benchmark ourselves against our neighbors? We use 6 neighbors. Lakewood is up here twice for a reason, and I'll walk through that. But you can see that this is our current 2026 single-family annual bill compared with our closest city neighbors. So we have Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, Westminster, Golden, Broomfield, and in-city Denver. So this is a roll-up of all 3 funds, water, sewer, and stormwater. You can see water's in the blue, sewer's in the greenish teal, and then stormwater, if that fund is available in that city, is that red color. On the left-hand side, you'll see the variance in bill totals. And so you can see Consolidated Mutual as the ditch company that offers water through Lakewood customers, some of them. They are at the low end of the spectrum, and they are just shy of $1,000 a month, $1,000 a year for a total bill. At the top end of the spectrum, you have the City and County of Denver, and that is just shy of $1,400 a year. So there's not a huge range. There's a $400 range there that all of these cities fall into. And what I think is interesting to point out is that regardless of the size of the system, you have Golden, which is a smaller city, smaller town, and Denver, which is a very large city. There's still a fair amount of money that is required to keep our systems reliable. If you take this chart and look at it slightly differently, and this goes back to the conversation about fixed fees versus volumetric or consumption fees, this is the exact same information, water, sewer, and stormwater, but it's broken down by how much is a fixed fee and how much is a volumetric fee. And so you again see Lakewood with Con Mutual as their water provider at the lower end of the spectrum, Denver at the higher end of the spectrum, but the variation of the fixed fees, which are represented as the dark blue, is notable, and Arvada has the lowest fixed fees of these comparisons. And so we are looking to increase that fixed component so that we have a more stable revenue while also being thoughtful about what the impact is to our customers. We do recognize that there are customers who are challenged with paying their bill, whether it's an ongoing issue for them or it's a one-off hardship that takes them by surprise. We do offer programs for our customers. And this chart shows you where we have been over the last 6 years, current to date in June. We do offer hardship credits for our customers who might be blindsided by something that happens, the perfect storm of events. They call us up and we can offer them some assistance. And there is no income qualification for that. Anybody can qualify for that. We offer the ability to have a payment plan. So if you call in and say, hey, I can put $50 towards my bill right now, we'll work with you to figure out how to pay the rest of it while keeping current on your bills. And then we are continuing our equalization plans. It's a different way of saying budget billing. So we offer customers the opportunity to pay the same amount every month. And then at the end of 12 months, we true up with the customer. So sometimes they owe us more money. Sometimes we owe them money based on their usage. And then we set that on again for the next 12 months. We are looking at doing a bill credit that's aligned with our resident tax rebate program. So if you qualify for that program, you would qualify for this bill credit, and that is coming likely early next year. We do offer our customers some tools to both manage their water use and also have a nice looking yard. So we have been rolling out our water meter technology. Eye on Water is the name of the app, and I believe some of you have that app on your phones and are using it. That allows our customers to see almost real-time information about their water use. It helps folks track their water use habits over time so they can see when they're using their water. What's fabulous about it, and we've mentioned this in the past, you can set up alerts for potential leaks. And this time of year when irrigation systems are on, and some irrigation systems are older than others, we don't know that there's a leak underground. We can't see it, so we don't know it exists until we get our bill. If we have the app, we can see that that's something that's going on, and we can work on fixing that. Excuse me. We also partner with the Regional Resource Central organization to offer our customers a variety of programs to also reduce their water use while keeping their yard looking nice. And so the programs this year include the Garden in a Box, which is hugely popular. They have offered a lawn replacement program for several years, and then a Slow the Flow sprinkler evaluation, which helps customers understand how much water they really need for their lawn and is their system working efficiently for them. We are about 84% complete on the Ion Water installations, and so our team thinks that they'll be able to finish all of that rollout by first quarter of next year, which will be exciting for our customers. Everybody will have the opportunity to access that information via the app. And a plug for that program, if you don't know if you have a new meter, chances are if you have a new rubber cover on your water meter, that means that you have a new meter. But if you're unsure, feel free to call in. We can certainly tell you if you have a new meter. And with that, I will transition it back to Jacqueline.
Welcome back, Ms. Rhodes.
So I just wanted to conclude with an update that we're really excited to be starting up our utilities stewardship community group. We held some information sessions, had a lot of good feedback from those sessions, some excellent qualified applicants, and we are ready to make those notifications this week and begin meeting next month. So our plan for this group is to meet at least 3 times this year and perhaps 6 times in ongoing years with an initial focus on water, our treatment plant, and some of these critical discussions around water. But of course, we'll have that group assembled to provide staff some input as we're talking about decisions that we're making across all of the utilities enterprise funds. I also like to highlight our utilities transparency page. So we post workshops like tonight, key materials, and we will be adding to that page information that we're sharing with our utilities stewardship group so that everyone can see the history that we've been on since around 2022 when we started on this roadmap journey together. So speaking of the roadmap, at least for this year's next steps, I mentioned that I wanted to speak about drought surcharges. Drought surcharges are different than what we've been talking about tonight in terms of our long-range planning and our rate and fee financial strategies. And the team is excited at the trends we've seen. So in terms of response to this year's drought, when we were last in front of you in early June, we were seeing higher than 5-year use. And that was alarming to us. And I do want to note that the years that you're referring to matter. So when you see things reported in the news, think about whether that's year over year, the last 5 years, or more than that, because obviously the period of record that you're using when you refer to your community savings goals does matter if you want an apples to apples comparison. And I believe our team has provided some additional information to the council on what the details look like over the last 5 years. But in terms of what we're partnered with Denver Water on is they're really looking at a 20% goal over that 5-year average. And so when we came here in June, we were actually using more water. But I'm really excited to report that our community has responded. Both our city teams and our community have responded, and we are seeing more than 12% reduction. While it's not 20, we're really optimistic at what we're seeing, again, within our own operation and with what we're seeing in terms of our community's trends. So our team would like to actually bring this item back. I'm sorry.
I apologize. I know I'm not supposed to interrupt, but I wanted one quick clarifying question on that 12%. Is that from the June number or from the previous number?
I'm sorry, that's July to date. Yeah.
But it's 12% reduction from what? So from the previous set of years?
From the 5-year average.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. As I just mentioned, it's important to clarify the period of record. So we're trending in the right direction, and we're excited at the way our community has responded. And our team would love to bring back this item in next spring should we need to look at a multi-season drought. So should that happen, as we monitor snowpack and what the conditions look like, we can come back to you early next year, talk about the drought, what's happening, and then at that time determine whether drought surcharges are the right approach. We also have slated on the workshop schedule an August 25th workshop, and we intend to bring back any follow-up information to you that you'd like to see at that time. We have a September workshop slated as well. So if those are needed, we're ready to respond there. And our schedule for presenting for adoption, any rate and fee adjustments are shown in October 6th and the 20th. So for your input tonight, Chris spoke a little bit about our fixed fee strategy, and this is something we want to continue to look at and examine. But in terms of the scenario that we shared tonight, that does meet that minimum of 20%, and we would look to get your guidance on that. We shared a current fully funded scenario. We have some backup information in the appendix that shows what that scenario looks like across a range of water users. So a lower water user to a higher water user, what those bill impacts might look like. And we also have in your appendix what kind of a minimal red-only funding scenario might look like. So we'd like your feedback on that and any other information you'd like to see if needed in an August workshop.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all of your work in making sure that we don't end up on the news for the wrong reasons. I love the transparency page. I think that is a wonderful way to involve the public because I certainly get a lot of questions as a council member about water and the fees, and so being able to be like, here's all the information instead of each time researching a particular thing, that's really great. And I also really like the community advisory group, really involving a lot of people in the city who really care a lot about water and how the infrastructure is going and all the fees. There's just like lots of really great residents in Arvada who really want to sink into this. So I'm glad that we are providing an official way for people to really get involved. So thank you so much. A quick question on, I have lots of questions, sorry. But a quick question on the drought restrictions that I didn't ask during the last time when we were talking about surcharges. If we don't meet that 20% goal, does Denver, I mean, obviously we like run out of water, which is bad, but like, does Denver fine us or something? Or is there like some sort of other consequence besides running out of water if we don't meet the goal that Denver has set?
Do you want to help me answer that question?
We do not have anything that's going to happen us per se, short of, yes, running out of water. We are working to align with our partner, and so because they are the source of most of our water, we want to make sure that we're meeting, as far as we can, their requests for reducing water use.
Okay, I was just wondering about the consequences after that discussion of like, if Denver's like, you are not reducing by 20%, so we are going to force you to reduce by 20% because we cannot use this water, we're in a drought, like if there was some hard and fast mechanism. Yeah.
There's no hard, fast mechanism. I think everybody on the Front Range, when we've been talking to them informally, is really working hard on education. We haven't had a drought of this magnitude. I'm not sure when we last had a drought of this magnitude, but 2013 was the last official drought. And so 13 years of people moving into the state, not understanding. So this year is mostly educational. And like Jacqueline mentioned, we're seeing a tremendous response from our community. So
Great.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, that's great to hear that Arvada is moving in the right direction since the drought surcharges conversation that we had.
Thank you, Chris. And I would just add one other thing that we do have provisions in our contract where if Denver Water has to, what we call load shift to serve their obligation to us, we will pay those additional operational costs.
Okay.
So again, it's in both of our interests to make sure that we're reducing as much as possible, using as much of our own water supply as possible. But we'll be working closely with Denver. And I believe, again, we've put measures in place that are consistent with it's expected in our contract.
Yeah, so for the public hearing that's coming up, if we could have that information about like, you know, I would rather be hit with like a $50, $100 bill than, you know, not have water. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to weigh those different consequences of enacting a surcharge versus not having water, or a surcharge and then the city actually, as a taxpayer, paying lots of money because of the load shift or other operational things that's in our contract. Like if we could make that clear about what the consequences are if we're not able to meet the 20% that's in our contract, that would be really great to have for that conversation.
We'll provide more information for you.
Okay, great. So usually when you all talk about rate changes, slide 17, when you do the comparison of our rates with other cities, you typically show us like, this is what it is right now, and if you adopted our scenario, this is what it would look like in comparison to other cities. So I know you're just asking for direction at this point. That chart, I always like it, but I do also like how you pointed out that it's like a $400 difference in the sizes of the cities, and how much the infrastructure requires. But yeah, so you don't have the slide here, but I think in the future when you're discussing this kind of slide, and also with the different scenarios you're talking about, like where that would put, I think, I know we shouldn't do things just because the other cities do them, but I think it's helpful for a reference to know where the different changes would put us in the standings.
Thank you for that feedback. Be happy to put our scenarios on here. The challenge we sometimes come up against is each agency has a different schedule for when they adopt their new rates. And while we know of some proposals, until they take action and make those formal decisions, we are comparing our proposal for next year to every utility's this year's standing, which is just important information to consider.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense that you wouldn't want to propose a rate increase when they might be increasing too, and then the comparison doesn't matter. Yeah, that makes sense. So another question I had here is, how is Consolidated Mutual able to, do we know how they're able to keep the cost down in Lakewood? Because they're a larger city than us, but.
Lakewood actually has multiple providers. We just showed two examples here. We have the city of Lakewood shown adjacent to Arvada, and then the Consolidated Mutual.
Okay.
So again, I think there's some unique characteristics to their system, but there's also other providers in the city of Lakewood that we could have added here. I don't know if you'd like to add anything else to that response.
Consolidated Mutual is a recipient of Denver Water as well, but Lakewood is served by, I think, 15 to 20 other districts. So to Jacqueline's point, we provided the city of Lakewood, which has a very small treatment capacity. They have their own utility, but most of that city is district provided.
Interesting.
100% of those districts are Denver Water, so that's the difference there.
Okay, thanks. And then when you talked about the affordability and having the credit, one thing I always like to hear about, and if you don't have the information today, that's fine, but in the future, is just how many homes have been condemned due to water shutoffs? Because I know that was a new policy that we enacted since I've been elected to council, that I have extreme reservations about. So I always want to hear, like, okay, so 10 homes and so many people were affected due to this. I mean, I really appreciate that we're working with folks, but I also like to hear, like, the number 0. We haven't had to condemn any homes because of water shutoffs. So
yeah, unfortunately, the latest number is 3 homes that we're monitoring on that list. It's been as low as 0 or 1 and as high as 3 recently. Again, we continue to work closely with those customers and work through our code enforcement teams with that.
okay, great. Is there any other ways that these infrastructure things could be funded, like putting it to, well, let me back up before I talk about this. So what I am struggling with is this feels like a new proposal on how to pay for water, that I thought that the last time we approved the water increases, we had these 3 different scenarios, and for most of them, we voted for the most expensive scenario with the reasoning that if we did that, then it would save us money in the long run, because it's an upfront investment, which saves us maintenance fees, and it's also, it's just cheaper to build. The cheapest time to build something was yesterday, and all of those things. And then while we would be voting for the increases now, it'd be painful now, it's because we hadn't been voting for increases for a really long time and we needed to do catch up, but it would be painful for a few years, but then it would level off and actually go down. Like, I remember the charts leveling off in the future. So I was kind of like voting for that, to being like, okay, future city council members, you can thank me that I'm voting this now, so that, you don't have to deal with the pain in the future. But now I am not sure how this proposal fits into what we have already voted and passed for possible future rate increases. Do you have any information about how it fits into that scenario, or is this a complete, like, you know, we predicted it would be that much, but actually it's got to be this much? Like, how is what we voted before connected to what you're proposing now?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to try and answer it here with the slide in the appendix. Back in 2022, when we're talking about this roadmap that council gave us direction on, we were forecasting about a 12 to 14% rate and service fee adjustment per year. In fact, in the last few years, we've come in lower than that, but this is still a multi-year strategy, and that's why we prepare this 10-year plan before you to weigh in on those project priorities. I understand this is really challenging because we have rate discussions each year for just the next respective year, but the reality is the team is working on long-range planning. So again, we're building 10-year models and we're forecasting those rates out multiple years. We can provide scenarios of what things could look like if you want to look at a multi-year strategy. What happens if council were to, for example, set a 5-year fixed rate increase plan, but we have not provided that for you tonight. Tonight we're just focused on what the 2027 suggested rate structure looks like, rate plan looks like, and we have run the financial models for the full 10-year plan. But to recap, what I think your question was is, it feels like we're not delivering what we said we were in 2022, and I can say we are, and we are providing you the updated CIP costs, and a lot of what is driving the investments before you are the water treatment plant replacement project, as well as our gross reservoir expansion project contribution. And so those, you can see some of the remaining forecasted spend in the upcoming years on those projects.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is helpful because what my question is, you know, when we approve the rate increases in 25 for this year, 26, right? There was like a forecasted schedule that looks like it was 12 to 14% per year, according to this slide, right?
This was in 2022.
Oh, this is 22.
I could bring back the numbers from
Yeah,
last year.
so if you
you'd like
could
to see
bring,
that.
yeah, it just helps me to see, like, did I already say, like, yes, this much rate increase, because if we do this much of a rate increase this year, then we're expected these next following years, because I am trying to follow along with the 10-year model, because I don't know if when we approved the rate increases last year, if we were like, yes, and for 2027, it's probably gonna be a 20% increase is what we're gonna come to you with, because I thought the high increases were like over, because we had approved it, you know, with difficulty for the last time we approved it. So that's kind of what I'm asking is, like, how is what you're asking connected to what we've already approved?
Thank you. I will provide more information compared to what we discussed last year, and I will just share the strategy that we presented for stormwater looks a little different. So water and wastewater, we've said we're going to take a long range, try and really flatten or dampen the rate impacts on stormwater. You can see what we're proposing is the opposite. We're proposing right-sizing that fund now so that you won't see those adjustments next year.
Okay. Thank you. And then on slide 18, it's very curious that Arvada has the lowest fixed fees, but brings in most of the money through volumetric. Do you know why that is?
Back in 2022, we started this journey of really looking at our fixed fees. They had remained relatively flat over a period of time before we had embarked on our system master plans. We had committed to look at this, and again, this year the team's look at it is setting a policy goal of at least 20%, but revisiting that with your direction if you'd like to see that increase further.
Okay, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of, like, all the rate increases are just volumetric, or all the rate increases are just fixed? Because I would be thinking about a volumetric focused increase plan would hopefully decrease water usage, which, you know, of the watering of outside, which I personally am a big fan of, and no, my yard is not ugly, you know, but I just think to honor the fact that we live in a desert prone to drought, and that seems to be the most advantageous way to go. Like, if you don't want to pay the extra fees, then you just don't use the water and you plant cactus and it grows great here and they flower, you know, like what, can you talk about the differences? I mean, I would imagine you want fixed fees because that is a steady rate you can depend on for expansion, so it's really hard to balance out exactly what is the magic line between fixed and volumetric.
I'm going to let Chris speak to some of this and maybe
Okay.
even turn to our CFO to weigh in as well.
So it is a balancing conversation. We do have tiered rates, so the more you use, the more you pay, and that is designed to be conservation-oriented. It also does cost us more to produce more water, so there is a factor of that in there. Years ago, and this is 6 years ago, the fixed fee was $5.83, which I think represented under 5% of our overall revenues. And so we are working to make sure that in a year of historic drought, when our revenues from how much water you use are not going to be there to the extent that they would be in an average year or a rainy year, we are able to fund our operating costs by not going into our fund balance. We have our savings account that we use to cover our costs if we don't have enough revenue, but we want to make sure we have the appropriate amount of revenue. And I think appropriate is the key word here because it's going to be different for every organization, and that's what you see in that fixed fee chart. Is we have a low fixed fee. Denver has a high fixed fee. Broomfield has a really high fixed fee. And so even if you don't use any water, we're still going to have that revenue coming from your fixed component. But we can't make that 100% of the charges because then that's unrealistic. And also it doesn't have a conservation mindset. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
the other desire to move to a little bit more balanced of a fixed fee versus a volumetric comes from your bonding. If you have a higher fixed fee, that means you can count on revenue a little bit more, so your bond, individuals that are looking at investing like that, because then when you have these kinds of cycles, you can kind of blur them a little bit. I would reiterate what Chris said. We can't get too far down the road here because it can also become punitive. So for example, yourself, you don't use a lot of water, but if your fixed fee is quite large, then you can make an argument there that we're penalizing you for not using water, if that makes sense.
Okay, all right. Last question. Which utility or enterprise fund is it that has the bi-monthly charging system? Because a lot of residents have asked, can we please pay monthly? Without realizing that if we move to monthly, that's more expensive, and they don't want that. But that has been a frequent request. So I don't know, like, where does that, you know, live? Because it's like where our trash comes out and our water, all these different waters come out. It's all the utility rates. So does that actually live in one of our enterprise funds, or is it coming out of the general fund? Or like, how does, if Arvada was like, yes, I really want to get charged monthly and I don't care how much it costs, like where does that live to change that?
We have a plan to move to monthly billing. We have to sequence that work carefully with the other priorities that the teams are working on. And so what that looks like, as I mentioned with some of our heavily customer-facing items, when we talk about implementing recycling credits, drought response right now, when we talk about adding composting, those are things we're working on immediately, which means our billing system replacement project, which is needed for us to move to this next step, is sequenced with that work. I'd say in addition, Chris mentioned our meter conversion effort, and we'll be wrapping up that end of this year, first quarter next year. Will also support that work. And so in terms of integrating these projects, it's in our plan. We can't wait to get to it. And we're sequencing it with some of our other priorities. In terms of working with customers, I think Chris mentioned the equalization plans, and while not a perfect solution, it is a tool that our customers have available to them today to help manage the seasonal impacts from their bills. So
Yeah, that's great. That's good to know that you're working on it coming. And Mr. Archer, can you talk about where that system actually lives?
Sorry, Councilmember. Ultimately, the system lives in our enterprise funds, and it lives in all of them. So it's water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste. And so it would be funded in the end by all of them. The water fund bears the majority of that. And so they were the original creator, if you want to use that term, and then the other ones have kind of jumped in with it. So the replacement would be across all 4 of them, and that's why it has to be staged appropriately. So the general fund would have a role in the sense that we would support it, but ultimately it would be paid for by user fees. The general fund wouldn't pay for any of it.
Right. Okay. All right. I have more questions, but I'll give it a rest to let other council folks ask.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you for the presentation, as always. And I think I've got several questions, but I'll build off of Councilmember Ambrose's about last year's conversation we had about which rate structure we were selecting that you had modeled out, with a lot of conversation about the impact over time, over the next decade, and how that pricing was going to change based on the trajectory that we chose. So I think, just to echo Councilmember Ambrose's request, I would like to see that graph again and show a dot or something to show this is what we're proposing and how it does or does not fall on that trajectory that we had believed we were putting ourselves forward on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We'll bring you
great.
that.
Fantastic. So the pricing proposals that you showed tonight, I think the one piece that I'm missing, and if you can help me understand, is you're showing the increase, the amount increase, but what is the actual total then that a household would pay? So this is the plus to what they're paying today, basically, right? So is there, I didn't catch what that total was going to be per household. And just for reference, what are they paying now as a reference point as well? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
I think so. So the total annual bill impact to that 90,000 gallon per year water
Right.
customer is shown on this rate benchmarking
Yes.
chart. That is for 2026. And what I can do is make sure that we're providing you information. I'm not doing the mental math on the fly. I'm looking for phone a friend so that I can do the mental math across this bill.
Yeah, I was looking
to
for
show you the total
for the
annual
monthly
impact.
or bi-monthly impact, and what I see the increase here, but what is the total?
Yes.
Right.
I can.
So that was one question, and then okay. So then on this proposal, you had referenced, and I did go back and look at it again, about how you had shown in comparison if it was red only. I actually would like to see red and orange without the yellow, and what that would look like. And then I think, just I would like to hear, if it's not tonight, what that means if we were to do a red and orange only without the yellow, hear a little bit more about what that would impact what we're trying to accomplish over our overall goals. So that would be something that I would be interested in seeing. And then I want to dig into a little bit more about MHFD and understand what's happening there, because I've heard a little bit in the past about it, and just want to get kind of caught up where we are with that now, and how we might be able to leverage that money as it's stated in the slide. And I thought I had heard at some point too that the MHFD projects could also help us with other goals we're trying to accomplish, like reconstruction of the golf course and things like that, because a lot of that drainage goes through the golf course, and so it could help us with that. So I'd like to get an update on how those projects are moving along and how they could impact our other goals, like I said, the restoration of the golf course, for example.
Obviously, I will provide more information and follow up on the details that you answered. We do have a Mile High partnership shown at least in the projected long-range plan, and I can have our city engineer, Claudia Vaughn, speak to some of our current efforts underway in terms of those details.
Good evening. So currently we have 2 projects that we're partnering with Mile High Flood District on, Arvada Center and Pomona Lake. Typically when we partner with Mile High, we have one that is in design and one that's in construction. So we're always trying to kind of sequence these to have one that's getting ready to go out as well as one that's further along, just given their staffing. Mile High Flood District works on a 5-year budget, so they have allocated funds for us for those 2 projects over the years shown on the one-pager. You'll see in I think it's in orange, there's also a Mile High Flood District line item. That is because we have identified that there is some money available in out years that we really would like to advocate for to bring that money into the city of Arvada to do additional projects. You speak to the golf course. So the golf course is an area that has been identified as a potential site that we could utilize to deal with some floodplain issues for the Little Dry Creek. That floodplain is not a regulatory floodplain yet, but it is, the study has been done to show that those flood rates are higher, that floodplain is going to expand. So we've been looking for creative ways to find a site where we can do those improvements. It has also been, discussed with our VCN department around how we could 2-for-1, if they're looking to do some improvements to that golf course, how can we also mitigate those flows and get our community out of the floodplain? So we're continuing to look for those opportunities, and as we get more information, we can move forward with that project.
Great, I appreciate that update, and yeah, please let us know as those conversations move forward. I'm very interested in learning more about it, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's see.
Councilmember Mormon?
Yes.
I can give you an update to your question around what the monthly differences would be.
Okay.
Rocky just did some quick math. And so right now, on a monthly basis, it's about $103. If we took all of these changes on a monthly basis, it would go to $115. So about a $12 round numbers, again, these are big round numbers, difference.
Okay.
That would be if you accepted all of these changes here.
Thank you, appreciate that. All right, I think my last question is the one showing our comparison with our neighboring cities, and I'm just curious about Wheat Ridge being on the lower end of things. Do you have any insights on why they're lower? What's the state of their infrastructure? Is it a situation where they haven't been catching up, or they have already been caught up, or what's their status? I'm just curious.
Well, one thing that I would note is that they've been working on a stormwater master plan and building what a stormwater utility fee might look like. And so you see there's no red bar in the top of the Wheat Ridge, and we'll see what action they choose to take there. They have some, I think, recommendations and proposals that they'll be considering over the next year. I don't know the details of the other investments that they've made on the water and wastewater side, but I think the stormwater gap that would be filled would make them right in that comparable range.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you very much.
That was actually my question, was why didn't Wheat Ridge have stormwater? So thank you. Councilmember Pfeiffer, you are next.
Okay, good thing I wrote this down. I've forgotten them all. So quick things. For last year, I just want to call out the funding scenarios we went through. The top of the line, when I did look it up, was 18% increase in the fixed and a 7.5% increase. A lot higher, but I don't think we went that way. I think we went lower, didn't we? I think we went to the B or C, if I remember right. Yeah. But I want to go back on that a little bit, because a couple things. One is, when we talk about percentages, and when I appreciated your presentation tonight, when you talk about percentages, they seem bigger than they really are. When you say 20%, you're like, oh my gosh, 20%. So everyone thinks, oh, well, I go to dinner, it's $100. 20% is $20. That's a lot. At the end of the day, 20% is probably less than a coffee, or right around a coffee at one of the local shops. Is what we're talking about. So I appreciate the fact that you're putting it into like real dollars hitting my real pocket that really impact my cash flow. So I appreciate you moving that direction, because it's just, to me, it's real. This is real dollars that real people work for every day. And you're basing it on an average user, so that's great. So, reflecting back when we started this journey, because I was pretty critical at the very beginning, because there was a lot of stuff going on. I guess that should be considered your predecessor in a way. But even her predecessor, a lot different. But when we look at that, we made an intentional roadmap decision, and I think you showed it on 22, that we were going to hit a trajectory. And if I recall that conversation, and year over year, because I was critical of that, because I was a little worried about 12, 14%, that always seems more, it seems so big, 12%, 14%. At the end of the day, it was like $8 more on a bill, or it's $12 more on a bill on an average house. We agreed that we would take the higher hits. I agree with that conversation at the beginning. But I also do recall that we would have to take it year by year, because we had the control of the levers and the knobs, and if we changed something year over year, we weren't going to commit future council members. If they went to 8% or 20% or 40%, but we could commit that year, we agreed that the trajectory in the roadmap was 12 to 14%, and kind of set the path forward. So I appreciate that we still are using that as our historical starting point, and our trajectory is still to shoot for that 12 to 14% if we need to. Again, going back, I'm glad we're not using percentages. Maybe that's how you got to the math. But the percentages are a little bit important in this conversation, because what I appreciate even more of that is we're not hitting the 12 or 14 or 17%. We're actually hitting the 8 and 9%, which, if I recall correctly, one of the things we were going to do was, it hits and then just hits a cliff and then hits the 3 to 4%, because some of the council members may not, well, I don't think they would know this. Maybe Lauren, but it was only 3 or 4%. We were doing 2% increase year over year for decades. So we always knew that we would eventually get down to, hopefully, our goal was to get it down to a 2, 3, 4% increase. Long story to get there. I appreciate the fact that it's not just a cliff. You're leveling the percentage down and normalizing it, which gives us on the trajectory of getting it down to hopefully sub 5% increase in the long run, which is maybe $5 increase to the bill. So I like that part of this presentation, because you did give us a taste that you are lowering the overall increase, but you're still achieving the goals. You're also showing that it's the impact is about $11, right? I think I get that right, $11.80. I also appreciate one of the things that I didn't appreciate as much as I do today, the fixed versus variable. One thing I didn't hear you say on it, and I think if I recall correctly, one of the things about fixed that got me last time to get off that criticality was the fact that the fixed costs really helped, or the fixed price actually helped our fixed costs. Because we still have to deliver water, no matter how much people want to use it or not. I can't just cut back on the pipes or the treatment or the employees, because they all have to be there, because we never know the ebb and flow of water volume. And that was to help stabilize the infrastructure, right? I mean, that's what I recall, and I was like, okay, that makes sense, because you can't base it on volumetric, because it's a fixed asset, and we have fixed costs. So I appreciate that we keep that in our mindset as we go through that. I also, I'm just thinking, I don't have questions, I'm giving you comments. I also you said sequence priorities. I appreciate the fact that you can't solve the world on everything right now, and I appreciate you still hear us and you put on list, but really knocking off the priorities one by one and showing the green projects or the green activities or tasks. I appreciate that you started off with celebrating our completions, because I don't know if we always did that the years before. And when you see what we completed, fantastic, absolutely fantastic, because we didn't know where we were when we started this journey, and now we're seeing the fruit of those labors from your team and our bonding. Last, I want to talk about the drought surcharge, because I am excited by the news. I know for a fact in my community and around, we talk about it, because some people do have the app, talk about, well, how much did you save, or how much are you, and where's the balance of minimal to keep things alive, so you're not spending another $80,000 or $50,000 or $40,000 or $10,000 to replace your yard. People are talking about zero-scaping and extra-scaping, and people are being creative on their own, because I believe this drought discussion, it shouldn't be punitive, it's a culture shift. And I want to focus on a culture shift in our community from our arid environment. And the more we promote, the more we discuss, the more tools we give, the more opportunity for people to have those conversations in their communities, I think is a result, well, I know it's a result of the numbers you gave, which you said We started at 5% in June. We ended up at a minus 12 in July. That's a 17% change in behavior with no punitive attack on our community. We made almost a 20% change in consumption just by having the conversation. Fantastic. I think we need to keep going down that path. We need to keep it in front of our conversation, and we need to keep letting people have the conversations on what they can do to contribute. Because regardless if we get out of this drought, we're going to end up needing to conserve water. Period. I've done a lot. Randy, you would be proud. I've been doing a lot of reading and research around sustainability and water and climate change, and I am understanding the importance of changing culture in the conversation, and I think we're doing that. So I'm okay. Are we going to bring this back on the 18th again? You mentioned it and they breathed over it, and I wasn't sure. It was on here, and then it's kind of like you backed off, and then have the conversation in spring.
My proposal is that the team provides an update on our drought response and what we've seen from our community.
But no hearing, no discussion.
Hearing, and that we, if needed, bring that back to you next spring following this winter, and we can assess this snowpack.
I think that's correct, and we just need to keep the pulse on it. Your team's doing it. They're keeping the pulse on what's going on, and if something dramatically changes and we don't see a continuous improvement, then we need to have the discussion sooner, right? But right now, a 17% change in behavior in 45 days is amazing. Culture shift is almost impossible to do in that short of order. So they're getting the message. Yep, I think I got everything I wanted. So no questions, just kudos. I like the way you approached it. I compared it to last year's. I like the list. I like the simplicity of it a little bit more. I think we still need the data. The appendixes are perfect. I think the graph that was asked for is fine as well. I do agree comparing with other cities is a little hard because it moves. Yeah, I think you did a great job on this one. So I just wanted to share my excitement around what you did. So thank you. Thank you and the team.
Thank you.
Councilmember
And you did it in
Griffith.
30 minutes, just so you know. We dragged it out longer.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, it's on us. Councilmember Griffith.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of comments. The first one will be real easy. I just wanted to bring some attention to the smart meters. I know that there's some concern about smart meters with water that are extending from the smart meters for electrical services. And I'd love to clarify that we are not going to surcharge based on time of use for water.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Yes, that was a very specific question. So I appreciate that, and I recognize the value that we have with the new smart meters. I also understand some of the concerns. I think that the city team is doing a good job. There's a lot of resources on the city website with the smart meter program for the water, so I appreciate that. Easy to refer people to. I wanted to talk about the chart over time with neighboring municipalities. Or actually where they're at specifically right now with their rates. There's something that I think that gets lost in the details when we look at these charts, because this is where I think we should be. I think we're comfortably where I would put Arvada if I had to guess. And I think it's a place where I'd like us to stay. But a lot of these municipalities have planned changes to their percentages and rate increases and have historically done changes. And I don't know if I'm going to give you an impossible thing to investigate here. Please tell me if it is, but I just love to see how we are tracking our peer municipalities with rate increases over time. Because as Councilmember Pfeiffer mentioned, for a long time we had a 2% or inflationary sort of tracking increase, and I'd personally love to see us return to that. However, I totally acknowledge, having seen our facilities, that we have some updates to do. And so I think this presentation tonight did a good job capturing a lot of complicated elements of that strategy, but maybe there's an opportunity to look at it over time and with increases from neighboring municipalities to say, well, we've got this planned upgrade that's necessary, and the plan isn't necessarily to continue to increase at high rates, but maybe to even get down closer to that inflationary tracking. So that's a comment, I think, mostly for folks that are confused by a lot of these graphs and exactly what they mean. I think we're doing a good job, and I absolutely am on board with the need. We have good facilities, but they're very old. So I think that's well justified. One thing I also wanted to draw some attention to is I don't want to rain on the parade. I totally love the percentage increase, but I also want to be surgical with how we analyze data. I would guess that there is something to the last couple of rain events that we've had that close out the month. And those tend to impact the way that we use water. I think that big of a swing indicates that we are seeing a culture shift. I think that's totally there. But I also want to keep an eye on, like, historically, are we seeing more rain in the last couple of weeks that have impacted the way people are using it? Like, really, let's drill down so we can celebrate fully if it is truly a culture shift of that magnitude. 17% is great. I just want to make sure that it's 100% vetted. I think those are my only comments.
Thank you for that. If you'd allow me a quick response, our team is tracking precipitation, ET, a number of different factors, including daily use. And so you can really see our customers responding with the no watering on Mondays. You really see that drop in production across our system. We have a data dashboard. Again, our data team has been amazing to work with so that our teams can monitor daily what those trends are and be happy to provide some more follow-up on that precision you're asking for. Also on the other communities' trends, different communities go through different phases of reinvestment as they do their planning. Again, we have an excellent finance and data team, so we'll put our heads together on if there's a way to bring you more information to be able to see that longer range picture in terms of how we benchmark over time. I'll put some thought to that. But yeah, I've been talking to our peer communities and trying to understand what their upcoming proposals are going to look like. And again, they really vary based off of the investments they have next year or in the coming years. So I'll give some thought on how we can present that to you.
No, I appreciate that. Perfectly articulated. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And I had another comment here. It just said park, and I can't remember what I was thinking until now. So driving around the city, I have noticed, our parks are pretty brown, a lot of them. And I actually think that's a good thing. I think what we are doing is asking our residents to be very responsible with their water usage. And I think to see the public spaces also kind of dealing with a little bit of that water usage, the lack of water usage, I think it says that we're all in it together. I made a couple comments over the weekend with my family. We were all driving around. And I was like, yeah, it's looking pretty crispy out there. But we are in an extreme drought. And I think it's impossible for us to sort of walk the walk. One thing I wanted to call attention to for the residents and for our team is we can always plant new grass. It's very difficult to get new tree canopy. So if we can prioritize anything, prioritize the trees. Thank you.
Councilmember Davis, you are next.
It surprised me. Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. You know what a wonk I am about our infrastructure. So I am too buoyed that we are making 17% increases. I actually had sent something to Mr. Wick because Denver Water actually said that they're only having a 2% conservation out of their 20% goal. So, of course, I had to immediately call my Denver Water folks and say, nana, nana, boo, boo. But, I had a question on this page, and this probably goes to Ms. Stahl. Is Davis Lane pond dredging, is that part of this project? Because I do see here that you have another dredging project on here for storm sewer?
So the Davis Lane project was a storm sewer project,
Right.
and I've just taken over the storm team, so I'm going to defer to Claudia. We'll have to get back to you on that.
No, I just think that it was done in a manner that the residents who live around Davis Lane felt like that the city did, your team did an excellent job so that they did not have downtime in the park, and the park use was still at an all-time high. So I wanted to congratulate you on that Davis Lane dredging, but it wasn't on your list, so.
It's probably buried in the ones that say 4 or 6 projects on the storm side.
Okay.
Annual maintenance.
Great. Let me and I think of all of the other comments and questions, We're doing such a fabulous job. I'm very proud to be a part of all of this. Mr. Pfeiffer covered most of my issues, so by items. Thank you so very much.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'm very interested to hear what the residents from the advisory group, what their opinions are, and very grateful to all of them for taking the time to come talk water with the city of Arvada. So as we all know, water is a limited resource and we can't control the weather. But what I've heard between this and the last presentation is that a lot of our water use is residential and volumetric use. Am I understanding that correctly?
For a typical residential customer, most of their use is outdoor use. The majority of their use is outdoor use for a typical customer. And, and I think that's maybe some of the point you were wanting to make, especially when last time we talked a little bit about household size and really wanting to be thoughtful when we're setting our financial strategies to not impact, large households. And so one of the points I think you were trying to allude to is there's still a high outdoor water use component for those customers.
Thank you. Thank you for reading what I was saying there. And I think we have a real opportunity there. I have a 3.5-year-old, and I often think we are borrowing the future from them, and it would be really awesome 25 years from now for them to look back and say, oh, they looked at that red flag of water use, and we gave to the future better than maybe we're getting. So to clarify the questions you had, I support the increase to the rates. Mainly because it allows preventative projects and the bond opportunities, which is wonderful. I support the current scenario, but I did have a few things I'd like to see in the August 25th workshop, and that would be, are there other ways we can lead by example? Are there any parks we could maybe have less grass? Or just ways to, again, show to the community that we see this. Something I would like to see, pun totally intended, but can we ride this drought wave? Can we acknowledge that our behaviors need to change and that it is up to us to change those behaviors? What opportunities would we maybe have to potentially commit future councils, as Councilmember Pfeiffer said, just looking ahead, if we were to make a commitment to 5 years or something, what could that do for us? What could we achieve with better efficiency and better behavior? And if we are increasing the fees, I would like to see how can we take some of that funding to provide financial support or for residents. So maybe lawn replacement programs or ways to incentivize or reward good water behavior. So I guess overall, but like if we want to do a cultural shift, as you mentioned, are there ways we can use money to incentivize that? So I guess overall, when you come back on August 25th, could you show us, like, what if we meet our priorities? What if we are proactive with what's listed, kind of in the orange and yellow? And then what if we maybe go just a little bit above and beyond, thinking much farther forward, and again, kind of riding that drought wave and trying to practice these great water practices and maybe shift the culture of Arvada and our water use. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think pretty much all of the questions I had have been asked and answered, and quite a few that I didn't think of to ask. So thank you, Council, for the robust discussion. Really a good job tonight. I do have one question quickly, and it goes back to what Councilmember Ambrose was elucidating on in terms of if Denver Water decides to move their where they're piping from and bring us water from the south, we know they're going to have to charge a surcharge to us. This may be a question for Mr. Archer. Do we have enough reserves in the water fund to be able to cover those surcharges, at least to front load it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
none of those surcharges would have an immediate impact on the water fund. If we were to face surcharges over a period of time, we might be looking at concerns, but the immediacy, no, we would be completely fine.
Okay, so I really do like the schedule that we've laid out to talk and continue analyzing, but if and when Denver Water were to implement surcharges, I do think that would sort of be one of those triggering events where we would need to reevaluate the plan and potentially come back with looking at the volume increases. So having a plan in place to where we can rapidly activate and even just name it the Denver Water Surcharge fee or something like that, so that folks know why we're doing that if and when we have to do that. And my only other note was really, I would too like to see the red and orange together on the 25th when this comes back, to see if we can tackle these more, not just the high, but also the medium critical opportunities and what the difference is versus the high only. Otherwise, everybody kind of covered it. Great job, Ms. Rhodes and team, Mr. Archer, Ms. Gray. I know Ms. Stahl. I know it's a lot of work putting these together, and we will see you in a month's time then. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Espinoza, quick question. How long do you think you're going to need on the next one? 20 minutes. All right. I'm going to call just a quick bathroom break. I've had a couple of requests for that, so we will reconvene here in about 5 minutes.
Human Services Grant Fund recommendations. And before I jump into the presentation, I first want to acknowledge the work of Nick Ashmore. He's our Housing Grants Administrator on the housing team. He's here tonight, so I really appreciate the work that he's done with the Human Services Advisory Committee in putting together these recommendations. I also want to thank two members of our Human Services Advisory Committee. They are here this evening. The first is Allison Harmon, who is here. She is the chair of the committee. And so thank you, Allison, for being here. And also, Wiz Jackson is also here. So thank you both for being here this evening. Before we jump into the 2026 recommendations, I just quickly want to give some background for the Human Services Fund. This is a fund that is open to nonprofits who offer a variety of services to the community. And they serve the populations that are in need to the city, so we're focusing on low to moderate income populations for these funds. The total amount of the funding pool is $185,000 of the general fund and $75,000 from HODAG, so it's a total of $260,000 that we award annually. HODAG stands for the Housing Opportunities Development Action Grant. Thank you for asking the question. That is a loan repayment that was made to the Housing Authority years back, and we use it to fund a variety of activities here at the city, one of them being the Human Services Program. The Human Services Advisory Committee is the group who comes together to review the applications and make recommendations. They participate in the evaluation of the applications. They provide funding recommendations to council. They provide recommendations for the grant application and the review processes. There's a total of 9 members, and that committee meets twice a year. We meet early in the year to come up with our process and determine our timeline, and then the second meeting is when we make the decisions for award. Here is the timeline that we follow. So in March, the committee, we have a meeting to update and do planning for this upcoming application period. In April, we announced the application period, so we put out public notice to nonprofits serving the community. In May, we open it up for applications. In June, the committee reviews the applications and determines award. And then in July, we bring the recommendations to council. As far as the application process, the nonprofits apply directly into the city's Foundant software platform. The committee members, they review applications and complete a scoring matrix. And the applications are scored based on the following criteria. How much experience does the nonprofit have? What is the identified need? They need to provide a reasonable budget. What is the benefit to Arvada? Are they leveraging other funds? Is there a duplication of services? Collaboration with other groups, measurable outcomes, sustainability, and alignment with city council priorities. This slide, we want to go through some trends that we see with the applications over the years. This first one reviews the number of applicants versus the number of awards. And you can see from this slide that the number of applicants was consistent between 2020 through 2023. We were receiving anywhere from 17 to 22 applications. We did see an increase in applications in 2024. Approximately 23 applications. And then in 2025, we saw a decent jump in the number of applications we received, approximately 27. The number of awardees has stayed pretty consistent, at least it was during 2020 through 2023. We awarded 16 or 17 agencies during those years. In 2024, we saw a decrease in the number of awardees, and that was because we were trying to award a larger grant amount to the groups, which then decreased the number of organizations that we were able to fund. In 2025, we awarded a total of 20 organizations.
This slide demonstrates the amount requested versus the amount awarded. In 2020 through 2023, we saw similar trends with the amount requested versus award, and that was between $300,000 and $375,000. The amount awarded during those years stayed the same at $260,000. In 2024, we saw a total amount requested at $550,000. In 2025, the total amount requested was over $800,000. And this slide depicts the average low and high awards. I won't go through all of these, but in 2020 through 2023, the average award was between $15,000 and $18,000. In 2024, the average award increased to $20,000. And in 2025, the average award decreased to $13,000. We saw a higher number of applicants in 2025, so therefore trying to fund as many of those organizations as we can, there was a decrease in the average award. So let's jump into the 2026 Human Services applications. Again, the total city budget is $260,000. We received a total of 24 applications. The total requested amount is just over $550,000. And of course, it's always a tough decision that the committee is faced with in terms of which organizations to fund. So in doing so, they looked at priority areas that were identified in the Arvada strategic plan. They looked at impact. They considered duplication of services, quality of application. And in your packet, you should have received a 2026 applicant spreadsheet, and that will show you all of the applications that we received. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to Allie Harmon, and she can walk you through the list of recommended awardees.
Welcome, Ms. Harmon. Thank you, and good evening. So to go through this list for the 2026 recommendations, Community Table Assistance Program, the recommendation is $20,000. For the Seniors Resource Center, $20,000. Mission Arvada, $20,000. Project Angel Heart, $20,000. Karen Clinic, $16,000. A Precious Child, $15,000. Community Table Emergency Food Fund, $15,000. The Ralston House, $15,000. Family Tree, $15,000. Hope House, $15,000. Jefferson Center for Mental Health, $15,000. Beyond Home, $12,000. The Action Center, $12,000. Archway Communities, $12,000. Jeffco Prosperity Partners, $10,000. Spark Hope Automotive, $10,000. Food Bank of the Rockies, $8,000. Volunteers of America, $5,000. CASA of Jefferson and Gilpin Counties, $5,000. Totaling $260,000 for the recommendations for 2026.
So for next steps, we welcome feedback regarding the recommendations received tonight. We want to make a recommendation for resolution approval at the August 18th, 2026 business meeting. And from there, we will then move forward with issuing agreements with the organizations. So from here, I'd like to open it up to any feedback.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Thank you. I really appreciate this presentation. It's very interesting to see historically what has been requested versus what's been awarded. It's interesting to note that last year we had like 850,000, and this year it seems closer to 550,000 in requests. One question I have, in the matrix of deciding how much to award, do you take into consideration the different funding environment that the sectors are in? For example, affordable housing has kind of eased up as rental prices are decreasing and housing prices are seeming to level out and cool off. But at the same time, you know, Medicaid has had historic cuts with the passage of HR 1 last year, and everybody's health insurance premiums have gone up 30-40% even at private employers. So a lot of health providers are really suffering. I'm just wondering if that is part of the matrix of like looking at, you know, part of assessing the need of what Arvada needs right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, we do. And I think last year was a really good example of the discussions that that the committee had regarding that. Last year, we saw an end to a number of organizations receiving COVID funding. And so that was a big part of the discussion is, were these programs that existed prior to COVID? Is there a continued need beyond COVID? What does that look like? So yes, the committee does consider factors at play in the current environment when making those decisions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you all could look at the list again and just, I mean, I know you considered it, but that would be my only recommendation, is to think about like the environment of where these organizations are trying to exist, given the policy changes that are happening at a federal level that affect us here locally.
Definitely.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
This is always a good time of the year. I always appreciate this. It seems earlier than normal, but that's good, maybe. I don't know. Just make sure our applicants know that we did it earlier than normal.
Yes. So, and thank you for bringing that up. One reason that we did it earlier this year is we joined the Jefferson County Home Consortium because we were using CDBG as one of the sources to fund the grants. And we wanted to align our new program year with CDBG, with the Human Services grants. And so we bumped it up earlier in the year. Now, you will notice that we're not using CDBG after all to fund the grants this year. And that was very intentional because of some of the new requirements that the federal government is asking us to comply with. They have asked, well, not to go too far into the weeds, but nonprofit organizations are no longer exempt from collecting citizenship information from their participants if they receive federal funding. And that has posed some serious concerns for nonprofit organizations. Since we received that guidance from HUD, they have made those citizenship verifications voluntary, but we don't know if and when they will come back. And so we made the decision to, in an effort to have good partnerships with the local nonprofits, let's not use CDBG and potentially put them in a difficult position, put ourselves potentially in a difficult position not to be able to comply with requirements if they're not collecting that information. So we removed it, and the city manager's office was very kind in supporting us with finding other resources to fund the grant program.
You tee me up very well, because I won't pull a Wright, Miller, whatever you want to call her, when she did it. Do you remember when she increased the funds? She did it during budget season. I think it was $60,000. Just so everyone knows,
I remember that.
It was $200,000, because it was definitely before all of this. It was set at $200,000, and I think it was during the time we were actually voting on the budget. She dropped it and asked for $60,000 to be added to this. I've always wanted that. I always wanted an increase, so of course the council told Brian, make it happen. But that leads into, I think it's something we need to really consider, increasing that fund from our general funds. It's very clear that $260,000 since Dot was here, which was what, 10 years ago? I don't know, when she did that. We have not increased a dollar on that. So we really need to take an intentional step forward in this, because to me, this process and the way the Human Services, which we appreciate everything you all do, one, it takes the politics out of it because we shouldn't decide where this goes at all. You followed a priority list, impact, all that. You check on the nonprofits. That's why we do not give out or pick who it goes to. You all do, and we just support it. I appreciate that. But I also, the demand and the supply are not equaling out. And I know we don't print money. We don't have a money tree that spits out the money. But I do believe that these nonprofits move the needle a lot more on issues for our city. So if our police have to deal with some of this stuff, I bet you we spend a lot more money when our police are dealing with it. I think we spend more money when the city has to get more involved. But if the nonprofits are filling an area that benefits our community in these areas without us becoming a human services department or housing department or any of those others, I would rather invest more in this process and these folks and put more money in here. And I think we as a city and a community, the right thing for us to do, ignore those shackles, let us change the color of money to be general funds, because then there's no strings attached to it. And we get to do what we want with our money without the feds telling us. And we can take care of our community the way we should. And we should probably find a sustainable way to increase this in the future. Or I would love to do it now if you could. Round it up to 30,000. But some way that we don't have this stagnant for decades and decades and decades without increasing it. Brian, do you want to say something?
I'll take your 30,000.
From where?
No, you said round it up to 30,000. I'm happy to go to 30,000. I think you meant 300.
300. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I was like, wait, what did I say? What did I screw up? I didn't vote on that. No. I meant raise it 30,000 or something. That's what I meant to say. Raise it 30,000.
I'm just giving you a hard time, Councilmember. Thank you for your input. We're actually right in the middle of our budget process, right? Literally right now.
Yeah.
We've been meeting last week and this week, and been taking and trying to find time, and so we'll take that input and certainly have that conversation.
Yeah,
So
figure a way that's, like I said, sustainable is one, but two, I think for every, I think back when I was on the food bank board, for every $1, it gets $4 of impact for the food bank. And I could probably say that for all of these charities that do that. So I want to think how far our dollar can go and if we can help them out. Great job. I always love this time. It's always when it's closer to Christmas, it's even more fun, but
right.
I appreciate you doing this. And man, only $260,000 and it moves the needle big out of $300 million budget. It's amazing what it can do. So good job to you and the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you, and I just want to support Councilmember Pfeiffer's request. I full-heartedly believe in these organizations and what they're doing for our community, and for us to be able to invest more in them, I think is really important. And I also want to acknowledge what you said. I thought that was very interesting about the CBGD situation. So I really appreciate you informing us on that. And I compliment you and the team in thinking that strategically and thinking about what we need to do to support our nonprofits. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to Councilmember Pfeiffer's comment as well. I am also in support of raising it to $300,000, but I have a big caveat, which is we haven't been through our budget season yet, and those healthcare increases are huge. And a lot of city budgets right now are trying to figure out how do we keep our staff at the level it is. And some cities are talking about having to let people go because of, again, the healthcare costs. So I would love to, because I agree with you, but it's just a really hard economic time for everybody right now. So I wanted to give, staff an out or something, because we haven't been through the budget season. We haven't seen the full presentation yet, so.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you so much. I'm also in support of Councilmember Pfeiffer's request to look into it. And thank you for your time looking into all of this. I think our nonprofits in our community fill a gap, and unfortunately that gap keeps getting bigger. So this is a way we can support our community. So thank you for bringing that up.
Councilmember Griffith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to say that I appreciated the care in looking at all of the award amounts. I know most of those charities, not all of them, and I know they all do great work in our community. And I'm sure when they apply for whatever amount they ask for and they don't get that, maybe they feel discouraged, but I appreciate that we try to spread the money and resources that we have amongst all those groups. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Davis.
Ditto.
Oh, a ditto, thank you. All right, ditto as well. I know we are in the middle of budget season, Mr. Wick, Mr. Archer. So again, let's see where the department needs are. What I don't want to do is potentially cost ourselves a much-needed human resources position or something that is filling a critical role here in the city. So let's see where we land. But otherwise, I would love to see us be able to fund organizations. I know there are a handful of organizations, including some that scored quite highly on the rubric that ultimately weren't funded, either because they weren't based here in Arvada, like Special Olympics Colorado or other organizations. But I do appreciate being able to take a look at those rubrics, see those scores, and if there are other organizations that may be meritorious to be able to fund, and keeping the focus in Arvada. I do always have to just echo that, keeping the focus in Arvada to help the people we serve. So with that, I see no additional lights. Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you
Espinoza,
so
Ms.
much.
Harmon. So great job. All right. Mr. Wick, any staff updates this evening?
I just have a couple of things. Earlier this week, I went out to the Indiana shops to visit our striping and sign-making crew. And the reason that I went out there is we took delivery of a new sign-making machine, which may not sound all that exciting, but it really is exciting. So exciting. And the efficiency of the new machine is really incredible compared to the process that we've been using for many years. And also the ability to be able to make these new signs much more, less expensive, more efficiently. But the film that we're using today has much greater UV protection, which means many less faded signs over time.
Yay!
So that'll be great. And as soon as the team is fully trained on that and ready to go, we would like to invite you to come out and see what that is all about. It's a fun process, and I think the team would really appreciate seeing you all out there. And then finally, next week, no council meeting because it's National Night Out, and we'll look forward to seeing you all out at the neighborhood events. So thank you.
Ms. Morris, anything from you?
Nothing from me, Your Honor.
All right, we stand adjourned.